my goodness. I looked at this and I thought New Jersey had a hurricane in New York, and they got their numbers in. What the heck happened in Florida?
This is a national embarrassment. It is an absolute national embarrassment. Look, you know, Rick Scott should be embarrassed with himself for doing such a poor job. There were people last week who were talking about early voting having problems. I think there's probably still people in line in Florida still waiting to vote. And you should have more polling stations. You should have them open for later hours. You should have them more available in metropolitan areas. This is some basic American rights, and it's an embarrassment that Florida is again in this situation, and the governor is responsible.
Why would you? Okay, so you are putting it all on the governor, because I know Jeb Bush and Charlie Crist, they both had extended voting at times.
Exactly. And the thing is, Rick Scott, as part of, you know, sort of voter ID across the country, which a lot of Republican governors were doing, you know, they cut early voting times, they cut hours, and that's where you have these problems.
Was that to cut costs, too?
The argument was to cut costs. I don't want costs being cut when it comes to expressing American democracy. If there's a time we're going to spend our tax money, it should be for Americans to go out and vote. Freedom of speech is the same in all 50 states, and voting should be the same in all 50 states. And I think it's an embarrassment when they knew this was going to be a problem, and yet the governor sat there with lawsuits building and people complaining and didn't do anything about it.
What about all the referendums that were on the ballot? People were saying that it was just too much. It was overload.
Right. Well, I think part of that is, you know, when you have an active democracy, people can put their referendums on. I don't think that the length of the ballot is so much the issue as not even having a chance to get to the ballot.
There's a report on the Huffington Post, too, as we get into this, that New Jersey Governor Chris Christie called President Obama. You're laughing.
Yes.
He knows what I'm going to say. That he called President Obama to congratulate him. Right. But he emailed kind of this conciliatory message to Mitt Romney saying, you know, sorry for your loss. Do you, I'm sure people want to read into that, that, you know, because he was so staunchly supporting Mitt Romney and he just got an email and the president got a call. What do you read into that? Anything?
There's nothing to read into it. It's all over the wall, okay? It's obvious. Look, Chris Christie is clearly not on good terms with Mitt Romney anymore. He and Barack Obama became Twitter friends and BFFs and Facebook friends last week.
Because of the hurricane.
Not just because of the hurricane, because I think when Chris Christie first said Obama's doing an outstanding job, I was like, okay, that's fine. You know, it's time for us to rally together. But after he got the criticism, when he went further and said, I don't want Mitt Romney coming to New Jersey and I don't give a bleep about politics, that was very clearly showing advocacy for Barack Obama. I think it was a real insult to Mitt Romney, and he only did that because he thought Mitt was going to lose. I mean, I think this is a horrible situation for Chris Christie moving forward and a real black eye for the Republican Party.
What do you mean a horrible situation for Chris Christie moving forward? Because he is a man that a lot of people are looking at to lead his party in some way.
Right. Unfortunately, he's now going to be John McCain. He's going to be a rhino. There's going to be people in the base of the Republican Party. I'm getting the phone calls from them saying he's a Republican in name only. How dare he? It was a close election. There are Republicans who say that he tipped the election in Barack Obama's favor. To have a guy who was a keynote speaker at the RNC praising Obama 4 or 5 days before the election, there are many Republicans who will never forgive him for this.
Wow. All right. Well, and just back to Florida real quickly. What can they do between now and 2016 to fix this?
Well, first off, you need to have more early voting. Look, it worked fine in Ohio.
Okay, so you think early voting is the key?
Early voting is the key because you're not going to have people lining up at the last minute. And also what you have to do, and this is very basic, you need to just have more voting precincts. Look, if you've got these major metropolitan areas and you see in 04 and 08 and 2012 that you have long lines, give them more booths, give them more areas. That's what you need to do.
All righty. Jason Johnson, so good to have you here as always. Thank you so much. And stick with us. A lot more to talk about on the other side of the break.